In this video, we're going to take a look at an example of using input with a float data type. We're going to do a little bit of calculation with our math operators, and then we're going to print. So as soon as you open up Python, and this is Python 3.8.5, this was downloaded from python.org, you're going to get what is called a shell. So at the top left here, you can see the word shell. This is also called interactive mode. Now notice with the interactive mode, you have these three arrows. Okay, that's how you could tell it's interactive mode. And this is designed for testing single lines of code. So if I wanted to just print the number 4, it will work. You do not want to put your entire program into the shell. Okay, number one, you cannot save this. And secondly, it's going to be very difficult to debug any large portion of code that you may have. So what you want to do is go to File, New File, and this is going to get your editing window. Notice it says Untitled at the top. We're going to be able to change that. And this is where you want to type your program. So you can, and I always do, close the shell. So what I'm looking at now is called script mode. Okay, this is where we're going to type our code in Python. This is going to be our program. And this program is going to be able to run. We're going to be able to save it. 3 months from now, if you decide to come back and make any changes, you could open up the program, make your changes. This will be easier to debug and share if you need to share your source code. Okay, so I'm going to start typing in a few lines. I always start off with a comment at the top. Comment could be just at least the name of the project, maybe your name, maybe the date that you started the project. Any revision date would be at the top. So I'm going to start off with a comment, and then I'm going to get our first line of input. Okay, so I typed in just one single comment with the name of the project. I have my score variable, which is ready to accept input from the user. So I have my assignment operator. I'm going with the float data type, the word input to get input from the user, and this is my prompt. So enter your first score, and I always put a space after my prompt. Okay, that avoids the user from having to put their own space. Make sure at the end when you're using this download version from python.org, you pay attention and make sure you double up your parentheses and make sure you have your closing quotes. So when I go to the next line, I'm going to ask for a second score, and I'm just going to call this score 2. Okay, that is a perfectly legal variable name. My assignment operator, float data type once again, input, and enter your second score. So if you have a third score you want to enter, feel free to enter more scores. If you want to call these tests, feel free to call them tests. Completely up to you. This prompt is a way to get the user to type in the data. In this case, their scores. At this point, I'm going to begin to calculate the average. I'm actually going to start off this section with the comment describing what this section does. So this is going to calculate the average. So keep in mind that the average is the sum of the numbers divided by how many numbers you have. So when I'm writing source code and I have to do addition, I like to use this variable total. So what do I have to add up? I have to add up my two scores. So I use my assignment operator, score 1 plus score 2. So what's going to happen when Python reaches this line of instruction? It's going to take both scores entered by the user, calculate the sum, and save it under the variable total. But that's only half of calculating the average. On the very next line, I'm going to have my variable average, and that's equal to the total divided by the number of scores we have, in this case 2. And that's how you calculate the average. Now all I have to do is print my result. Print your average is colon parentheses quotes. Okay, and there's no space needed after this colon because by default Python puts a space in between the arguments of the print function. Average variable and closing parenthesis. Let's recap. I have my comment, I have my input section, I have my processing section, I labeled with calculating average, and I have my output section, the 3 parts of my IPO. Now, before we wrap this up, we need to run this. So when you run a project in Python, you're going to go to run module, and it's going to ask you to save it. So this is where you want to make sure you save it to a location on your computer that you know that you can find it later on. So I'm going to hit OK. And once I hit OK, notice that the shell did come back. Okay, so this is a good time to look at the shell. There's my shell, and it has my output. There's my project output. So here's my program at the top. There's my program. Here's the shell with the output. Okay, so now I want to test this. I'm going to start off by typing in a couple easy numbers. So 190, halfway between 190 should be 95. That looks good. So that worked. Okay, so testing with 2 integers worked, but does it work with the float? So keep in mind that in my program, I asked the user to enter their scores as floats. So I could not move on without testing this with floats. So let me run this one more time. Enter your first score. I'm going to type in 99.5. I'm going to type in 98. Okay, so 99.5 is a float. And I hit enter. 98.75 is correct. So you definitely want to test your projects at least twice, maybe 3 times, just to make sure that they do work and they do work with the different data types. Okay, at this point again, I'm going to close the shell. Take one more look at my program. Now, if you need to copy and paste this into a grade and assignment, for example, this is what you copy and paste. Copy and paste your program, go to the assignment, and paste it into the assignment. Notice that in the program, I do not see any arrows. Okay, those are not part of the program. Okay, this is your program. If you need to submit this program, this is what you submit. This is your source code. So at this point, this project is ready for submission. So one last look at grades with arithmetic. Until next time.